All right, big dogs. First up, we got Joe Burrow with an X. Just absolute incredible season. Arguably, I would say one of the best quarterback performances, at least at the college level ever. Would you agree, Noah?
Oh, for sure. What do you have, like 65 total touchdowns?
60 tutties, baby. And he did it all in the SEC, facing the nation's top defenses. So it's truly remarkable because if you look at him last year, he was a non-factor, right? I mean, when I was playing in Devy leagues last year, he was not even drafted. So this year, the guy that basically has the 101 just totally lucked out and ended up with Joe Burrow. But I mean, just like a remarkable turnaround. I mean, this guy hopped around from school to school, finally got the chance with LSU, and basically took him all the way to the chip. And just honestly, one of the most incredible performances. His top receiver, Jamar Chase, who's also our wide receiver one for the 2021 class, ended up winning the Blitnikov. He's got Justin Jefferson coming up as well. Probably gonna be a first round, if not second round pick in this coming draft after he blew up the combine. So also got Clyde Edwards-Helaire, right? Someone else that's getting a lot of hype. So I think the first question that comes to everyone's mind is going to be, do you think that Joe Burrow is the one that lifts all rising tides, or do you think he's carried a little bit by the talent around him?
My take on this, and it's probably a cop out, but I just think all of them are very good. Like, you don't make the throws that Joe Burrow made, and they'll be on screen and everything. He just drops balls into buckets that not many other quarterbacks that at the college level can do. Like, Jamar Chase will beat somebody on the outside, sure, but the ball still has to get there. And the common knock is, oh, Joe Burrow has a baby arm. He's got baby hands. The way he throws the ball 50 yards downfield perfectly where the defender can't get it and where Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson, even Edwards-Helaire over the middle of the field, the way he drops it in the bucket it's remarkable. And you can't not be good if you do that, right? And I know a
Yeah.
lot of people are like, oh, they have all these playmakers. They had really good OC. Everything around him was good. Maybe he's not good, and he had a 1-year breakout. Maybe it just took him this long to progress and reach this level because every single game the guy was dominant. It didn't matter if it was the national championship, didn't matter if they were playing like UL Lafayette or whatever. He was just consistently dominant both on the ground, which is kind of surprising, and through
Mhm.
the air. There weren't many throws that he missed. He actually led the nation in on target percent. Mike, where do you think he ranked on
Oh,
target
on
percent?
target percentage? Man, I'm guessing like 85.
87%. So
Ooh.
13% of his throws were not on target, which is ridiculous. And his completion
Jeez.
percentage was 76%. So he's just deadly accurate. He was able to put up numbers on the ground. And in college, numbers look a little bit lower because they take away for sacks, which you have to take into account. But when you watch the guy play, he's not just somebody who is big and just runs in a straight line. He is actually kind of nimble. He follows his blocks well. He gets down when he needs to. So I think, at least for fantasy purposes, what he showed this past year at LSU, he has every type of skill set you want in a fantasy quarterback, somebody that is deadly accurate and somebody who can get yards on the ground to build up that floor.
Yeah, I mean, if you just dive into the stats even more, like it's super impressive. He's got 12.5 adjusted yards per attempt. So the only person that did better than that is Tua. And we all know how incredible Tua is as well. And like in terms of his big plays, he had a 61.6% of his targets go 10 plus yards downfield. So he wasn't just dinking it off, even though it may seem like that because Clyde Edwards-Helaire had like 55 receptions, which is absurd for a college running back. But he was also pushing it deep downfield. And unfortunately, I don't think we can find this play for you, but I was actually at the national championship game between Clemson and LSU, and there was a play that he made which ended up getting called back for penalty, but it was incredible. And he did this so many times throughout the year where he's really good at navigating in the pocket, like avoiding pressure and then rolling out and then finding players downfield. That's what I thought was like incredibly impressive. And it's just night and day because when I looked at him last year, like he just looked lost, right? He was either taking off too fast or not going through his progressions as fast. But I think this year he just like totally matured and took that leap. And the people that want to knock him for just having 1 year of production, like look, Kyler Murray just had 1 year, right? And there's guys that it takes time to develop. And the fact is when he got his chance, he absolutely smashed, right? And he even excelled past Pro Football Focus Baker Mayfield in terms of his deep down target. I think Baker Mayfield is at like 55.7%, and he was doing that at Oklahoma, right, in the Big 12, whereas Joe Burrow's doing it in the SEC. So I think there's just like not enough good things to be said about Joe Burrow. Absolutely love him as a prospect.
Yeah, and just talking about Clyde Edwards-Helaire, right? You expect a lot of those to be screens, and we'll get into Clyde Edwards-Helaire in a future episode. Only 262 yards from Joe Burrow came off of screen passes. 1,711 came on throws 20 plus yards down the field, which was the most in the nation. So the guy is not afraid to sling it. I don't understand this narrative of him not having a big arm. Like, every time Jamar Chase caught the ball, it was like 30 yards downfield. And
Hmm.
sure, 30-yard throw isn't huge, but how many times in the NFL are guys other than Jameis Winston throwing 60-yard bombs? And do you really
Yeah.
want that like every other play, like those big shots? And Joe Burrow isn't opposed to, trying to throw into tight windows, trying to make good throws to the back shoulder that may look like they're interceptable passes, but he just has such a good feel for the game. He knows where to place the ball where defenders can't get it, that I think he can step in. And with the weapons like, Tyler Boyd, even an older AJ Green, John Ross has no hands, but he can at least try to get open downfield. Joe Mixon out of the backfield. He's set up very well. And as you said before, right, he can navigate well in the pocket. Even if Jonah Williams doesn't play up to what we think he'll be, and even if that offensive line isn't as good as we may think, what he showed in college at least is that he can move around, he can make plays happen, he can extend plays, and that might, I don't want to say it's a good thing for his fantasy value, but it might cause more scrambling opportunities like Josh Allen in his rookie year and pick up more yards and more points on the ground than you may expect. So he's somebody that I'm super excited for. And just going back to his rushing ability, Mike, Joe Burrow had a higher broken tackle percentage than Joshua Kelly of UCLA this year. I looked at
Jesus
those numbers and I'm
Christ.
like, Jesus, either Joshua Kelly sucks or Joe Burrow is really good on the ground. Either way, I'll put that in Joe Burrow's cap and say that he's pretty good on the ground, and that's probably going to translate to the next level.
Yeah, he definitely did. I mean, even when I was remember like watching him when he took off for running, like he wasn't going down on first contact like all that often, right? He's not like a slip and slide type of guy. And I think like even someone made a crack about him like being like sneaky fast, which is basically just like code for a white guy running fast. And I think that he's got some decent upside. He's not the same athlete that Justin Herbert is, but I think that he also doesn't fold like a lawn chair like Justin Herbert does, right? Like Joe Burrow has no fear. At least like he's got that like killer instinct, and that's something that's obviously very hard for us to evaluate because we don't interview them. But when you just watch him on the field, like when there's guys in his face, that's when he's making the biggest throws, right? And I love to watch like what guys do when they're facing pressure because it's not like his O line was perfect. Don't get me wrong, they were good, right? And they were so dominating the rest of the competition. But in those instances where the O line did like fail, Joe Burrow stepped up, and that's exactly what we want to see because most rookie quarterbacks, like where they fail, is defensive coordinators start licking their chops and being like, okay, it's just time to blitz, right? Because they don't have time to do all the stuff they do in college. And I think that's a key thing that I think is going to drive his success going forward. Like, what do you have to say about people that say, he's old, he's an old prospect, he's 23 years old? What do you have to say about that?
Are we for real? Quarterbacks are playing until they're fucking 40. I don't care if he's 39 right now. That means he's got a year left in him. Baker Mayfield was old when he came out, and he's still viewed as like around the top 10 in dynasty quarterback rankings after a down season. And yeah, saying that a guy is old coming out, like I really don't care. The way that he looked, everybody else in the NFL is still going to be older than him. Like I don't weigh age that heavily. And
Hmm.
just bringing it back to Baker Mayfield, I think they have a similar type of mentality, that underdog
Yep.
mentality that Baker Mayfield kind of gets shit on because they had so many weapons this year. They're like, you can't be an underdog, but he still has that mentality. I feel like
Yeah.
Joe Burrow still has that. Like all the interviews I've seen, they're like, oh, are you going to pass up on the Cincinnati Bengals? He's like, no, I'm like, it's an NFL team that wants me. I'm going to play for them. I'm going to win with them.
Yep.
Even the Bengals are absolutely shit. And I like to see that out of a guy. May not translate directly to fantasy points, but I like to see that may help his longevity, being just a true leader.
Yeah. Remember that narrative that was going around that like Joe Burrow was like a bad guy or something based on like some interviews he did, like because he said the Heisman was not a big deal. I'm like, dude, where the hell is this narrative coming from? Because I watched his Heisman speech and all he did was thank his coaches, thank his parents, thank his teammates, and thank everyone. Like I think that's a good character to have, right? Like I don't understand where this narrative is coming from that he's like not a good character, like not a team player. I think it's like
Yeah, and
a
you're
bunch of
coached to be taught like that. You're not supposed to say that you like individual awards, which I think is stupid.
yeah,
Just like be happy for yourself. But like they're coached to be like that, and then when they say that, they're like, oh, they don't even care about winning an award. Like, dude,
yeah. It's
shut
like
up. This guy's a good player. Let him be.
yeah, exactly. What do you think about like his like? Do you think he's actually gonna go to the Bengals? You hear a lot of talk about like people maybe trading up. Do you like him better on the Bengals or better on the Dolphins? Both short term and long term. I want to hear your thoughts. 'Cause I have a little bit different perspective.
I'd just say the Bengals. I think they have good weapons. I think they have good young weapons. The offensive line, at least they're trying to add to that. The past few drafts, they've been adding like Billy Price and Jonah Williams. So I think that's a good fit for him. Miami, though, last year they were a pretty decent team. They have Devontae Parker, they have Preston Williams, and they won more games than I think a lot of people expected. So maybe the long-term play might be Miami because they look to be on the right track, while Cincinnati's just always a shit show. But
Hmm.
I wouldn't be mad at either. Just I think he has a skill set to kind of overcome situation, kind of like a Daniel Jones. Maybe he had a better situation than either of those teams because of the weapons that he had. But I think the
Hmm.
skill set lends him to be a very good fantasy quarterback either way.
Yeah. So my perspective is this, and I kind of tweeted this out and I changed my mind as I was responding to people. But I think in the near term, Bengals definitely better because I think they have better weapons. If you include like Mixon and everyone in the full scheme of things. But I think long term, I kind of like what the Dolphins are doing right now. I hate Mike Brown as an owner. Like he's the guy that came out and said like, why would I trade AJ Green to someone and help another team? It's like that's his mentality, right? So like he's like that guy in your league that's like basically in the middle and can't do anything, but won't trade you because he thinks it'll make your team better. That's Mike Brown. But I really like what the Dolphins are doing. But I kind of like you. I don't think it matters like where he goes. I think he'll be pretty successful no matter what. So it's gonna be a cool one. I really like Burrow. I really like Tua. You know, I think it's a great QB class, and there's some other sleepers that we'll cover in some other sessions. But man, overall, it's just an exciting time, right? Like, what do you? We covered this before, and you know, we obviously both have our ranks as Jonathan Taylor, DeAndre Swift, and then Joe Burrow and Tua. If you needed a QB though, would you be willing to take Joe Burrow number 1 over Jonathan Taylor?
Yeah, 100%. We kind of had that big 4 tier and then 2 within it. And I think when it comes down to is really team need. If you need a running back, I think you just go with the running backs. If you need a quarterback, go quarterback. Because although Jonathan Taylor may be an overall better fantasy asset 1-2 years down the line, I think Joe Burrow is still going to be very helpful, especially if you have like one quarterback and your second guy is Phillip Rivers and you know you need to upgrade or else you're not going to be competitive. I'd probably just lean Burrow there. I think wherever you go, you'd probably be able to trade a Jonathan Taylor for a quarterback anyways. But if you want to stay young, I don't hate going Burrow. I don't hate going Tua. I think both of them are very good fantasy quarterbacks.
Totally agree. And last thing before we wrap this up, who do you have as your comp for Joe Burrow?
This one might have sounded stupid, but I was thinking like a Ryan Tannehill from this past year, like the way that he was kind of a little mobile, pretty accurate, efficient, can get points on the ground through the air, something like that.
Yeah, I actually put, and I wrote this a while ago, a couple months ago, if I remember correctly, but I had him as Tony Romo. That's what he reminded me of. Both kind of that like pretty sneaky mobility and like no fear, like, you know, chuck it downfield mentality. I think Romo's probably got more arm talent than Burrow, but in terms of like the mold of the player, I kind of see them as pretty similar.
Yeah, it's not bad to be compared to Tony Romo at all.
Yeah, the most underrated quarterback, maybe player of all time. Gets hate on for all right, guys, that's it for Burrow, and we'll catch you on the next one.